Hey everybody, this is Aquila. I'm just here doing another demonstration for a game that me and my teammate made for the Advanced Game Programming paper for my graduate diploma of computing at Unitec. What this game is a really basic flight simulator, it was made using SFML and OpenGL. So this was coded in C++, and we used SFML for the main sort of visual rendering, but SFML has some OpenGL calls, and that allows us to use OpenGL within an SFML context, and it gives us quite a lot of very robust and but still quite effective power in terms of rendering potential in a video game context, or even in any other sort of graphical rendering context. So let's just go ahead and fire up the game, and we can start off with some world generation settings. I'm not going to mess with those very much because generally speaking the default settings are pretty much the best for just sort of trialing things out and then having a look at the game. So let's just go ahead and start that up, and we can see that we've started off in our flight simulator here. It can be controlled by keyboard as well as mouse. I'm just going to use mouse because it makes everything look kind of nice and smooth. We're going at a really slow speed at the moment, but if we press W then we can accelerate that, and we've removed any limiting on it up until 5,000, and 5,000 is a pretty decent speed that allows us to just sort of fly through the level pretty nicely. So it's yeah, we've got a few different things going on here. We've got the ability to pan. Most of what's actually happening here is we're using some camera calls, and we've created a camera class that allows us to manipulate the camera, and really the camera is what's allowing us to move everything around, and that is what allows us to sort of have this effect of moving through a world. As you may have just noticed, we don't actually have collision detection, so really it's just at this stage a kind of exploratory game. Just getting this far was taking us quite a long time because anyone who knows anything about OpenGL probably knows that it's very, very simple, very bare bones, but very robust and very powerful. So just getting what we wanted over here took a fair amount of time, but it's yeah, we weren't really expected to do very much more. We scored really high marks for our assignment in doing this because yeah, what we achieved here was it's lacking as far as your standard game these days, but it was still a good sort of exercise, and it looks kind of like it would be playable if a little bit more man hours were put into it. It's got OpenGL sort of rendering reasonably nicely, and we've got a sort of basic game world that's being procedurally generated based on those world generation settings that you had at the beginning. So there's a few different things to talk about, I guess. We've got the world being generated. Actually, I can't really explain too much of how it's done because most of that was handled by my teammate, but more or less each one of these paths or peaks are generated through a height map, and using the height in that height map we can assign different colors to the shaders and stuff like that, and that allows us to have this sort of effect of actual texture, even though basically all that's happening is it's using the height to give things a color based on that height, and that's how we've got this sort of the actual illusion of landmass and little bits of ocean or river as well. So yeah, that was pretty cool. As I said, my teammate did most of the actual coding for that, and I just did a little bit of fiddling around for making that height look really nice and aesthetic. The main sort of stuff that I was doing in this project was the skybox and also the UI to an extent. We sort of both pulled together resources and just sort of hammered that through in the last few hours before the assignment was due. So yeah, it was a pretty cool, fun experience. The skybox was a pretty nice thing once we've got it going, and what you may notice actually, we've got what appears initially to be an ocean texture, but that's actually just part of the skybox, and it's just that we've made the zero height a semi-transparent blue. So if I go underwater, you can kind of see that you can see the actual water texture that was being used, and that's what the skybox is using to give that illusion of a water texture. And now, since we're underwater, we can show you what the height map looks like from the bottom. So you can see all the different peaks and paths, and where the zero height's coming in, and things like that. So obviously there's a lot of things that we would have wanted to do if we wanted to make this more wholesome, real game or flight simulator. But yeah, it was really the time constraints that were preventing us from doing that. We ended up doing as much as we could, and I believe we both just got 100% on this assignment anyway, because it was enough to satisfy our teacher with the work that we'd done in the time that was allocated to us. So it was yeah, a pretty fun project overall. I can't say that I would be too interested in working with OpenGL too much, because you know, just the sheer amount of work involved is just quite staggering compared to just using a game engine or something like that. But it was still a very valuable experience in terms of learning how OpenGL worked, and getting to know the sort of key architecture behind that. So that's pretty much it. There's not very much more I can say about that. But yeah, it was definitely a fun project, and I'm quite pleased with the effect and the overall sort of achievement that we ended up getting at the end of it. So yeah, that's more or less it. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.